Don't listen to me. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Follow my advice if you want to toil in obscurity.
I'm super excited. We've got Jesse Goldman. I'm a big fan. You are continuing the comments on Instagram.
Sometimes the client actually is an asshole. Sometimes you're being a little bitch about the revisions.
Let's get into like what continuing the comments is, who you are, what's going on, and what's up, man? How's it going?
Oh my God, I'm so excited to be here. I love talking because that's what my entire Instagram account is. Continue the comments. I don't know what it is exactly yet, if I can be completely honest with you. I'm figuring it out. It kind of the way when people ask me what the hell it is I'm doing, I describe it as like I kind of went into it wanting to do like the Daily Show, but for design is what or like, John Oliver's show. I'm trying to figure out what it's supposed to be, but it's kind of a long time coming is what it is, if I can be completely honest, because I've been comedy adjacent my entire career. I graduated School of Visual Arts approximately 10,000 years ago in 2007. My first job out of SVA as a motion graphics designer was at Comedy Central.
Oh, wow.
And the honor promo team. And this is back in a time when if you knew how to open up After Effects, you could get a job. Like you could command like a $500 day rate in 2007 just by having the Creative Suite. But I stuck around at Comedy Central for 3 years, which at the time was a little surprising because I could have just like freelanced anywhere, like a lot of my friends did, just going from studio to studio. Yeah. People were charging day rates. It took me a long time to figure out why I didn't move anywhere. But I finally realized it's because I love comedy. I loved...
What was on Comedy Central back then? I don't even remember.
Oh my God, great question. So this is... It's in this weird sandwich period because it was just after Chappelle's show. So Chappelle's show was like printing money for the channel. And then he, everyone knows what happened after he left the show. He walked away from it. And then this is also Workaholics in Broad City, which was sort of like the last gasp of Comedy Central and like network TV and streaming. So it's in between, and really it was The Daily Show, The Colbert Report, and South Park.
Screw you guys, I'm going home.
But I stuck around there because I loved comedy, and then I was paying attention to comedy in a way that none of my other design friends were. Like I was watching other comedians from New York leave to go to Los Angeles, which no one else wanted to talk about that or was interested in talking about comedians the same way I was. And at a certain point I was like, you know what? I love this so much that I felt like I was always the bridesmaid and never the bride. I wanted to get closer to comedy and be making it. So I left New York. I'm from Long Island. I never not lived in New York. I lived in the city for 10 years. I packed up, I moved to LA, and I've been here now for 12 years. And I've been riding this line between the world of graphic design and comedy ever since.
So when you're talking comedy, are you doing open mics? Are you like getting on stage?
Yeah, actually I was. I moved here and I immediately... My cousin had been doing improv at the Upright Citizens Brigade here in LA, and I fell in immediately with that world. Like after a year, just sort of like getting by sea legs and still doing freelance for Comedy Central actually. But yeah, I fell into the improv world, and I was there for 4.5 years. I was on a house sketch team, a video sketch team, and I was doing really terrible indie improv for a long time. I never got good at it. I spent a lot of time and a lot of money, and I was pretty consistently bad. But I loved it. And I loved, just loved getting closer to it and feeling like I was part of that community, because what I'd always wanted,
Everybody's concerned about sustainability today. What if I told you can take your pouches, labels, your single serve wrappers and make them completely dissolve, make them completely disappear in water? That's what the team at SmartSolve has done. They've got a paper that is certified flushable. You can actually take the packaging, put it in the sink, put it in the shower, put it in the toilet, flush it. It dissolves completely into fibers. Learn more about SmartSolve. Go to smartsolve.com and ask for samples. Now, let's get back to the show. All right. So then a lot of what you're talking about on continuing the comments is like this millennial take on just life, right? As a creative. How does being a millennial change your point of view on creative?
I was born in 1984. Which, if you look it up on Wikipedia, that is technically, they call it as like a zillennial, which is like or the Oregon Trail generation, right?
Yeah, it's like you're blending.
Like Yeah, like I'm old enough to remember my house before a dial-up modem, but I'm also young enough to have gone to college with like social media. I got to kind of Gen X culture, the Gen X vibe, the cynicism, the like the like coffee shop, the in one of my videos, the Daria of it all is like deeply imprinted on me. But also when I started getting millennial jobs, I was the old guy. I was the old guy at Funny or Die, and then I got poached by BuzzFeed, and I was there for a year and change, and I was like one of like the top 5 oldest guys at BuzzFeed that was an employee and not middle management. You know,
Right.
to your question, like, which is like millennial, Gen X, younger designers, what the hell am I doing with this Instagram account? I witnessed this surge. I mean, the initial offering of like young people on the internet, on YouTube, back when YouTube was like, there was a time when YouTube, Google was just like giving anybody with like a digital SLR and like Adobe Premiere, they were giving them tons of cash because they just like, YouTube can't just be cat videos. We need someone to take this seriously. We need to fund what eventually, I don't think the word creator even existed.
No, not at all.
You know, I mean, we weren't even using the word content at that point. They were just videos. We were video makers. The first generation of folks on camera uploading it to the internet. And, you know, this working theory that I play with in one of my videos, and I still think about it a lot, it feels very unfinished to me yet, which is that millennials came up in this like kind of rosy atmosphere of 8 years of Obama and like and low interest rates for tech companies and just wild excessive growth, and it just kind of felt like, well, nothing bad's ever going to happen to us. Everything's going to be great. So everyone was on YouTube with like big energy, big smiles. There's nothing to be bummed about. Everything was, hey guys, like, share, and subscribe. Make sure to leave something in the comments. You know, that was like, that's an entire, I mean, if Gen Z is going to parody millennials, it's going to be like, hey guys, that's what it's going to be. It's like big, like Nickelodeon game show energy. That's what we were all doing. This is where Gen X lives in my head, and the millennials down here. Like the Gen X over like the shadow over my head never went away, and I felt never felt at home at BuzzFeed because it was so positive, it was so Taylor Swift, it was so #puppies, which is not who I am. I'm also a very New Yorkie Jew, so I'm just like, I'm prickly, I'm grouchy, I'm anxious. None of this clicks in with like Los Angeles positivity millennials. We're going to change the world. So with the Instagram account, I've seen this positivity, this also like creatives have gotten so good at not just doing client work, but packaging themselves up into a little brand and smoothing out all the edges.
Everybody's gonna have it's like all about personal brand, and it's like I gotta wear this. I always gotta look like this. I gotta present myself, and it's like you did a post where it's like I don't know, it's like people just show up to work in flip flops and
Yes, exactly. People have gotten so good at packaging themselves that they've kind of smoothed out a lot of the edges. And I saw that go from just sort of like people who were thirsty to be YouTube creators. And that has become, I think, I personally feel, I'm curious how you feel, sort of the mainstream for designers now, and for indie a studio of any size really is like smooth out all the edges. It made themselves very palatable, and you can be kind of anything to any brand that they need you to be. Which I get it. That's what kind of client work is. But I feel like once you open up that door of keeping things really palatable and really smooth edged and a little generic, that's when like toxic bro hustle culture kind of starts feeding into it too. And listen, there are so many tools for young designers and education out there that was not available to me when I was just going to art school. Like just like the business of doing design.
Yeah,
it's great. Those tools should be out there. They should not be gate kept. It's wonderful, but it kind of starts to rankle me when no one wants to be like, I don't want to throw around the word artist because that's loaded in commercial art, but like no one wants to be like lumpy or prickly or even interesting. And I just started the grouchy Gen Xer in me started looking at what was happening to the mainstream of our industry. And like no one is just like talking about how like this is a job, or sometimes things don't work out the right way, or it's just being honest about it. It's so much LinkedIn hype man shit that it just drove me crazy. And I wanted, maybe even as I'm just talking to you about it, for younger designers, I wanted younger designers to know that like, it's also just like a job, man. Like, it's like, there's like weird parts to it that are like not thrilling, or like the personal work you do is not really the work. The work is sifting through like a 38 response deep email to be like, where were the notes? Whose notes were who? Like, that's a lot of design work. Or just like presenting on a Zoom and being like, okay, well, we have to kind of navigate conflicting notes. And then this person just weighed in at the 11th hour. So, okay, well, their opinion is more important than anybody else's. So we do have to do that. It's a jobby job.
No, man, that's I love that, because I mean, I talk about that all the time. It's like, there are creators there are a lot of young designers that kind of show up and are like, I want to do beautiful work like this. I want to leave my mark. And it's about, the work for them is about the creation of something that doesn't exist. And that sounds all fucking amazing.
I love it.
But the reality is, you're creating something for somebody else to make money, right? And if what you're designing isn't making money, then what you're designing isn't good. It doesn't matter if it's beautiful. If it's not serving a purpose, it's not necessarily, it's not good. There's no value in it if it's not building, if it's not delivering, whatever it needs to be, whether it's like sell more product or change people's minds, like whatever that is. And that's not sexy. That doesn't sound fun. That's not like, oh God, I want to do that. But that's the job.
Yeah. When you talk to younger people about that experience, about the sort of like the reality of it, where do you land when it comes to like how to scratch the itch? Like, actually, to you yourself, Evelio, what do you do that scratches the itch of like, well, I'm going to make something beautiful and I'm not going to get notes on this?
I make this podcast.
Great.
Like, creating this is fun. This is fun, right? At the end of the day, I'm not creating this and nobody's making money off of it. It's like, it's just fun. I got some advertisers, that helps. But even with that, it's like, I have the power to decide whether I get an advertiser or not. I've turned down giant advertisers, which was crazy, where they're like, hey, we'll give you this if you talk about this product. I'm like, well, I don't really like you because you do this, this, and this, and you're polluting and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, all right, we'll just find somebody else. I'm like, all right, peace out. This is like my little space. And I get to work with people that I want to, and then I get to talk to people that I'm excited about. Like, if finding your spec data is a wild goose chase around your office, you've got a data problem. SpecRite is the only cloud-based management specification solution that every brand needs. Because if you don't spec right, you'll spec wrong. And like you said, the tools out there today, I mean, social media didn't exist. You couldn't post something for millions of people to see. You had to like literally mail stuff in or walk stuff over to people for them to actually see it. And then if they reacted to it, amazing. That was one person reacting to work directly in front of you. Now you can post shit all over the place. I had Mike Cesario on from Liquid Death. He's like, I created a Photoshop can and I made ads about this can. And that's how I built my business.
It's amazing.
That couldn't have happened at any other time on the planet. Like, you can build a business. There's this kid. There's this guy on X, Twitter, Design Joy. Guy makes $4 million a year as a one-person operating agency, where you pay $5,000 a month. You get him to design one project at a time, as many projects as you want, as many revisions as you want, and he does it all on his own. And he posts about, he's like, I've gotten down to where I can create, design, make changes within 30 minutes per project. And he's like, but I can knock it out in 30 minutes, but I won't deliver it to a customer for 48 hours. And he's like, that gives me the breathing room to, bank all of these projects. And he's here in Phoenix. So it's not like he's some like big hotshot New York. It's just, it's him. He's got 2 kids and a wife, and he just works out of his house.
That's incredible. Can I ask you a question about aging? Because
I've aged so well. Yeah, of course.
you look awful. You look like you're on death's door. Are you okay? Should I call a doctor? No. It's so interesting. You talk about like this podcast being a place for you to scratch that itch, right? And I started doing this Instagram account, which is like, obviously I'm bringing 20,000 hours of experience, 20,000 years of design, and then 10,000 hours, 20,000 years. Did I say? Yeah, I'm not old. I'm bringing a lot of expertise in comedy and design into 90-second reels, right? And I can move very quickly in them because I have all this experience, and the labor really is in the writing and the ideating, and it's my way of connecting and feeling part of something larger. I didn't have the impulse to really do this thing until very recently, and I'm curious how you feel about this idea that like I feel like the first chapter of my career was proving, man, just like I can do the work. I can do good work. Someone please just like not just pay me to do the good work, but like recognize that I can do good work. And I chased that for a long time. And now I feel pretty confident. Like I can do good work. I can, when a client comes to me, I know what kind of work is in my wheelhouse. I know what's just outside the wheelhouse, that if I need to fake this or fake that, I can do it. But I know what I'm good at. And it's like there's the second chapter in my design career, which is about building something that's not just focused on like, please just validate me. Please just validate that I can do the work. And this project, Continue the Comments, feels like this is like, oh, this is kind of my second chapter of like being part of my community, being a little honest, using humor to say things that would otherwise get ignored or maybe just don't want to hear. It makes the medicine go down easier. It's my way of connecting. I get to talk to you. This is so fun for me. Does that track for you? Number one, does that feel like that there are distinct chapters to a design career?
1,000,000%, man. I think, yeah, when you first come out, right, it's all about being validated. I mentioned before we started recording, I'd spoken to some young designers, and one of the questions I asked, like, all right, well, how much do you think you're going to be making when you come out of school? And they're like, 150, 160. And it's like, I remember that time when you come out and you're like, yeah, the value that I'm bringing, everything that I learned in the last 4 years, man, I should be getting paid because my education costs this much. And it's like, that's not how it works, man. You're going up against 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds that have a ton of experience they're willing to take 60, they're willing to take 70, because they've got a mortgage. They've got, they're out of work. They got to do something. And your 4 years of getting an understanding of what design was with no budgets and no parameters doesn't necessarily translate. So like that was like that first learning phase where you kind of figure out who you are, what kind of work you want to do, what your value is, and you also kind of figure out what you don't want to do. Like that was like that first phase. Yeah. And then from there, it's like, all right, now I'm a actual designer. Like I know what I'm doing. And you spend a good deal of time there. I spent like 12 years kind of building my career at that phase. And then after that, it's like, all right, well, now I know what I definitely don't want to fucking do. And like for me in packaging, I spent a good 2 years where all I did was sketch. So brands, startups would reach out to me and like, hey, we've got this product that we want to package. And I did not package this, but I have this product. I want to package this. Like, what can we do? And I'd be like, all right, it's $5,000. I give you 3 sketches. Taking me a week to put this together. And then I would sketch everything out. I'm like, I don't deliver final files. Like this is all I want to do. That was fun, man. And because I had all that experience, I could do that and I can hand that off to them. I could hand it over to their factories. Their factories could figure out how to make it. And that was it. For me, I love that front end concept side. Everything after that is a drag. And I learned that from having spent so much time doing what I was doing and then seeing that there's value in just the idea where you don't have to do renderings and all these different detailed things that take time. They're just fucking tedious. Cause then somebody's like, oh, I don't like the shadow on this thing. Can you change it? I don't like the texture on this. Can you adjust it? And they're just dragging that shit out and it's no longer fun. Now it just becomes work. It's no longer creative. So like at that point I was like, all right, this is kind of where I'm at. After that, then I'm like, all right, I got to go back into corporate. I really need a steady job. So I kind of shift into that. And then like now I need to figure out how to be creative on my own and have my own fun, which is then the podcast. So I think those are kind of the stages where you're like, all right, I'm trying to figure out who I am. All right, I know who I am. Now I know where I want to go. Now what do I do for the rest of the time before I fucking drop dead? Right? It's like like I think this is the last phase here.
When you started the podcast, did you go through a similar like, oh, I hope other podcasters validate me kind of phase, or were you so confident enough you're like, you know what, I'm just going to do this thing?
A little bit of both. I think it wasn't so much I want other podcasters to validate me. I wanted creatives to be like, oh, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good podcast. I really learned something from this. I was just reaching out to everybody. For me, it built an amazing network doing this. Mm-hmm. That's led to work. That's led to like a ton of stuff, a lot of great opportunities. I've gotten to travel all over the planet because of it. And that just makes it that much more fun.
That's wonderful. You asked me earlier, like talking about young designers, advice for them how to get in the game. Something I've been thinking a lot about. We talk about personal brand and I think everyone does need to log their 10,000 hours, right? You need to get good at your craft. You need to be able to prove that, and not just prove it once, but prove it consistently over portfolio, et cetera. Right. But I've been working on this idea. If you're starting out now, the market's so saturated. And I do feel, I feel for young designers because the competition could not be more difficult, because you're competing with everyone else who, maybe they went to school for it, maybe they didn't, maybe they just learned it online, maybe they're just like taking a few classes online. You can learn a lot of the technical parts of it and probably a good part of the craft just online. And then, we're in a terrible economy. I know a lot of people who are out of work, who are just doing contract to contract, who do not have something they can rely on. If you're young, you're competing against olds like me who have a kid and a mortgage and will say yes to the thing. It's never been super easy, but it's not easy right now. One of the reasons I started doing Continue to the Comments was like, well, I could design the fuck out of a brand for myself. And like, everyone already does that. Everyone's got like so good at branding, everyone can already do that. How can I make myself seem different, offer something different that would stand out from the crowd? And I know, like, well, I am funnier than most designers so it can be kind of self-serious. So I can offer that. My advice to a young designer entering the game is, yes, work on your personal brand, but also open your brain up to what that could possibly be. Because picking a logo for yourself and some fonts and even a little style guide for yourself is great. You should do that. It's great practice and you should do it for yourself. But also, like, I think the job most people should be vaguely, not like dead center target, but like vaguely aiming at is this idea of creative director, because AI might catch up to a lot of stuff we don't want it to catch up to. So you really do have to be an ideas person. Really, at the end of the day, you do have to be an ideas person. Like you're just talking about, sketching things out, that you want to get paid to have the good ideas. And that really is that's where the meat of it is.
That's the value, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say immerse yourself, as I'm doing as an old person now, in like the creator ecosystem. See how they're doing things, because they do have a lot of tools out there that can help you figure out how to put yourself out there in a way that's unique. Not just branding yourself, but offering. I'll never not hate the word content. I'm sorry. I remember before time and I remember the after time, and the content, content is video. It's also a podcast. It's also Hemingway. It's also Goodfellas. Like I can't let that all be content, but come up with a practice to get yourself out there and make stuff that's unique to you and satisfying to you. Because that's, and learn how to execute on your ideas, because that's when you're going to get plucked. Is like, people look out for like, oh, cool, you got a good portfolio, but you did this stuff just because you had to. I think that's the stuff that really turns heads. That's the X factor when you're throwing resumes around. But if you I don't have a lot of followers. I'm not going to blow anyone's mind, but a few videos have gone crazy viral, which is wonderful. And I do kind of like, I dine on that. People like know the work, and I get comments, and I build a network that way. That's how I built a network. That's how I saved myself from a bad economy and a contraction of the entertainment industry, is making my own shit. And And I think every young designer should think about doing that. But I'm also going to give a caveat. Mm-hmm. If you're a young designer and you want to start making stuff, please to God, to any God you worship, I beg of you, do not do the videos where you're like, 5 fonts I won't gatekeep from you anymore. We got to stop it. And also,
those things blow up. That's crazy. They suck, but they blow up.
But also, everyone can do it. Everyone can gatekeep fonts, and not like it's fonts are there. The internet's there. You can find a font, and also the videos that are just like.
No, but we know who you're talking about.
Listen, there's one guy, I'm going to name him. Made by James does a wonderful job. I have learned stuff from Made by James, and I will completely endorse his work. There are so many other folks I think who are doing. I see it is an endless supply of white guys who are doing this, and I think guys, we gotta find a new way to talk about design other than.
But there is one guy that's like blowing up. He does this, then he does this.
I can't. And I'm not sure who you're talking about. I wish him, they, them, she, their best. I truly do. I just think
there's more than just that.
There's more than just that. And also, here's the thing I learned at BuzzFeed. Millennials may remember that like BuzzFeed actually sort of like super popularized the top down cooking stuff, right? Of like, if the camera's this way, you see a hand come in and there's a pan, you crack an egg, Yeah. So that was really, they did really well. The Tasty channel actually did that logo. They popularized it and made it massively popular. Here's the thing about a executionary format like that. Literally anybody can copy it and dilute it, and it becomes nobody's. It becomes nobody's at the end of the day. So if you want to start out by copying that, then absolutely everybody copies somebody else. I am doing my best to copy John Oliver. So and where I fail in copying him is probably where I actually start getting unique. But if you want to start doing design stuff on TikTok, Instagram, whatever, and you want to copy that to start out, bless you. I think you should go do it. But let go of it. Oh my God, there's so much. And also, you can't gatekeep fonts. I can Google fonts. I can find them. I can find the fonts.
So embarrassing, because like I did a 5 websites that'll help you do packaging design. I put that on TikTok, I don't know, like 2 years ago.
And that blow up?
Dude, it gets saved in people's favorites, like, 20, 30 a day. It's just like nonstop.
You know what? Great. Don't listen to me. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Follow my advice if you want to toil in obscurity.
No, dude, it's 100%. Like, I was just on vacation with my family, and I got a 14-year-old. She's got a YouTube channel. She's like just kind of like, we don't let her do social media, but like that YouTube is as much social as it gets. And she like creates these things, and it's like shares her art. She's got like 2,000 followers or something. And then one of her friends, he plays video games. He's got like 200,000 followers. He's got like a play button from YouTube, and the kid gets like $600 to $800 a month from like revenue that his parents just put in like his college fund. Like, wow. It's insane. So she kind of has like an idea of what's out there on YouTube. As we're traveling around, to embarrass her, I'd grab my phone and I'm all, hey, YouTube, like 5 places you got to be if you're in Barcelona. And she's like, oh my God, Dad, you got to get the fuck away from me. We were like in the crowd, and people would turn around like thinking I was like some YouTube influencer. There's like the cliche shit, and then there's just like being you, because people are going to hire you for being you. And when I see your stuff, I think that's what I love about it, is like, I don't see it anywhere else. I don't, I can see the logo guy or the design guy that's pointing around. There's a million of them. But when I flip through and I see you, I know I'm going to get something entertaining, and something that's going to make me, either laugh or angry or whatever. It's going to generate some kind of emotion. That's what we should all want to do, right? So somebody can know, dude, I fucking hate this guy, I'm not going to hire him. Or this guy fucking knows what he's talking about. I got to reach out. And that's what you want. That's a brand.
I can't tell you how flattered I am by that. That truly means so much to me. And I really do thank you. And something you said in there was, the dangerous thing, right, is being specific. The dangerous thing is saying, I'm about this, and here are my opinions on this thing. And there is the danger of someone saying like, oh, not for me, unfucking follow. But you also will be for someone else. And I think as the group think of like, well, we're all little studios and we all have to like sort of like follow the same, we all have the same mission statement on our websites of like, I am passionate about brands, and the storytelling that empowers brands to be storytellers helps brands be great we can all kind of be the same thing. But if you can be just a little specific, a little unique, a little you, I love the way you put that, just being yourself on there, you will find your people. And there's more of them out there than you think. There's more friends out there for you than there are enemies, I think.
Yeah. And you won't hear from the enemies as much, but you'll definitely get some feedback from people that are interested in what you're doing. So the crazy thing is like your focus is video, but you also do like a ton of other things as well. In video, I've seen there's a lot of like spec creation of content. Mm-hmm. You don't really see that in graphic design as much, other than there's this guy, Gene Portnoy, who does, and I always like talk to people about him because he's doing something that nobody else is doing in design, which is he's creating like these spec brands. And spec is like a terrible term, but he's creating, like he created it was like a pierogi brand, and he did the packaging, he did the branding, he did the naming, he did the visuals. Didn't exist. It was just for him, like just for himself. And he posted it online. It blew up. There's a fucking pierogi brand that's like, oh, we were looking for a rebrand. Reach out to him. Hey, we'll just buy this brand from you for this much money. And then he released another design for like a chip company. Another fucking chip company reaches out and like, hey, dude, we were thinking about launching this kind of a product. You've done all the work. We'll pay you this much money for this brand.
That's amazing.
Creatives don't think that way. They're like, I can't do work for free. I can't post my ideas online. I can only show, this is what I did last year. This is what has released, and I've gotten approval to release it. And if you live that way, you're only going to post like 2 or 3 things a fucking year because, projects aren't that fast. But if you're creating for yourself and just posting, and I see this with like, video, you see a lot of cool shit that comes out in video. People have crazy reels that they deliver, but in print or packaging or these other areas, you don't really see that. Do you find yourself creating these types of things outside of it, or do you do so much video that you don't necessarily find the fun in creating your own content other than your Instagram?
It's a great question. Specifically because I actually started out, before continuing the comments, I started out doing just that. So I After Effects, Premiere, Photoshop, Illustrator, those, my Swiss Army knife, I missed the boat on Cinema 4D like a few times. I should have learned it way long ago. And I had enough of a career going that like clients weren't asking for it. And I was also pursuing comedy at the same time that I'm like, I only have so many slots I can fill. So I'll just kick this down the road. Only 2-3 years ago, it was COVID, of course. Why would it be? It was COVID. It was when I was like, well, I got time. And I finally learned Blender, and Blender was a thing that clicked into place for me. I found Cinema 4D a little confusing, because I'm not that smart. And, but Blender really was great, especially because it's a free software and all the education is on YouTube. You can learn everything you want about Blender on YouTube. So I wanted it to be like the cheapest education I could possibly get because I got student loans. So I fall into the world of Blender, and that world, the 3D world of like animation, 3D animation, all that stuff. There's a tremendous so much spec work, or even just like people building portfolios on a daily basis. It's crazy. And I don't know if it was because I got to it late and so I wasn't fast at it that I couldn't keep up with that, or just that like I didn't have the interest to be producing that much. It also just wasn't scratching the itch I wanted it to, So I have a different Instagram account that is linked on Continue the Comments. It's just my art account, goldman.psd, where you can see some of the stuff I was doing, little illustrations, some 3D, and I was really enjoying learning 3D. And I still have it in my back pocket. I know enough about Blender to get myself into trouble, is how I put it. I think what it really comes down to is, you put out the work you want to attract. And I think Continue to the Comments is my spec work. I I have the pedigree at this point. I've worked with big clients, name brands everyone's known, and I'm not saying like Apple doesn't need to be making stand-up comedy, but knowing how to make something funny within a brand film is useful. It is useful. Not everyone needs like 100% proof Jesse. Maybe they just want the light beer version of Jesse, and that's totally fine because it's commercial art. I want to sell myself the right way. I don't think I even thought about it this way until you just asked me, but continuing the comments is my way of telling brands like, listen, your stuff can be funny, and we can also dial that in. We can dial it in what it means to be funny and where we place that and how we do that, because I've been a motion designer for a long time, art director. I've been trying to claw my way into the role of creative director, which my specificity, I would love it if clients were coming to me with like, listen, we know you can design, we know you can make video, but also know just like this stuff is funny, and you're making jokes about being a graphic designer, or making jokes about the Cybertruck, or making jokes about just being a parent and being creative. Like if you can do that stuff and make that funny in 90 seconds, then maybe that can be applied to our brand and make their brand funny. And that really is, as I get into the second chapter of my career, of like, you know what I'm not going to get hired for is a beauty brand. Like they're not going to bring me on board. I'm too weird. I'm too weird, and I prioritize irreverence and being funny and humor too much. But there are tons of brands out there who
I think that's that's a challenge. I think there's a beauty brand out there that should bring you on, right? There's like Sasquatch, or right? Like, they're kind of the outskirts of beauty. Fuck. Well, why not humor?
Well, Sasquatch is actually a consistent sponsor of this incredible stand-up comedy series called Don't Tell Comedy, which maybe you've seen clips of before.
For sure. And I always see the Sasquatch logo in the back. I'm like, why the fuck is that there? But it's so perfect because, like,
yeah, it's wonderful. And I mean, like, through Don't Tell Comedy, I have met a new friend of mine because he's interested in design. He's a stand-up comic. Shout out JF Harris, great guy, really funny. He's a stand-up comic who's interested in design and this stuff, and I'm a designer who's interested in comedy, and I've like made like a new friend through that. And the fun thing about, again, the second chapter stuff is like, and opening up your world and opening up your network is like, you know, why don't I just be open to everybody's a creative. Yeah. Everybody, we can all find ways to be, we're all just trying to eke out a living here. Like we should all be talking to each other and not just designers. If you're a designer and you have design friends, that's fantastic. Try and go find a friend who's a copywriter or a stand-up comic or anything. Like open up the network, man.
Dude, that's so funny. I was thinking about this the other day when I was driving home. I mean, within the last like 3 days, I'm like, man, it'd be so nice to have like creative graphic design friends that have kids and the kids could play. And then like, as I'm driving, I'm like, then fuck, if I got to talk about fonts or I'm like, fuck, I'm like, that's too much work. I'm like, never mind. I'm fine. I just kept driving. I was like,
isn't that always the fear?
You know, with like somebody else drinking a beer and my kids playing in the, out in the sunset. And,
that is my fear of too many designer friends is the font conversation. Why does it always come back to why is it always all we talk about? That's sort of like, is that like our like, how are the Lakers doing? It's just like, so what fonts are you gatekeeping? Like, come on.
What are your top 5 fonts? All right, let's take a quick second to talk about idpdirect.com. Go right to that website, download the design guides, the sustainability guides, the recyclable icon guide, which basically lists out all the different icons. It gives them to you in vectors. You can drop them right into your artwork right now, today, and go right into production. All right, back to the pod. I just had a conversation recently about Oppenheimer, won all these awards. It looks beautiful. I fell asleep.
I will say I have not yet seen Oppenheimer because I have a 2-year-old, and seeing a 3-hour movie, like I don't know. I can't think of the last time I had 3 uninterrupted hours that wasn't me sleeping. So I'm dying to see it. Honestly, I'm a Chris Nolan apologist. I even liked that dumbass movie he did. What was it with the backwards and forwards time with Denzel's son, John Washington? I can't remember. It's not good. It doesn't make any sense. But I dig the vibe. I dig the Chris Nolan vibe, but I don't know if it. I also I also watched what's the Matthew McConaughey one with the black hole?
Dude, that's like the most amazing movie ever. You know?
Which one was it? I can't think of the name of it.
Interstellar.
Interstellar. Yeah. I watched Interstellar in a way I'm sure Chris Nolan intended, which was in 2 flights back and forth from Seattle on a screen this big with subtitles and terrible audio, and I really enjoyed it.
Dude, it's like the best movie ever. You were talking about Tenet, back and forth. I saw that too.
Tenet, yes, yeah. You like Tenet?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of it. But Oppenheimer was just boring.
It just didn't do it. Yeah. Well, let's can we talk about boring? Can we talk about what put you to sleep? Was it because like Chris Nolan is known for these, like if I was going to boil him down and like Joker version of him, it's like taking like Ray Bradbury but make it GQ, right? Like high concept, thoughtful sci-fi, and all the men are wearing what he wears, which are like Italian suits, and everything's shot a little cool, and everyone has, you know, an Omega watch. It's just everything's very slick and cool. And that's, I mean, he that's kind of the vibe, right? I don't think Oppenheimer has a high concept sci-fi premise. It has a real life sci-fi documentary, reality. Was it, when the story is boring to you, can you pinpoint what did not grab you? Because you sound like you like Chris Nolan, but this one just did not do it.
Love him, right? So Memento,
yeah,
amazing, right? Hooks you right off the bat, like what's happening in the story. Batman Begins, it's like action, there's a break-in, there's something, so you're hooked. The Prestige, beautiful movie. Oppenheimer, I can't tell you how the movie starts. I can tell you that there was a whole section where they're talking about how many languages these people speak, and it was like a whole thing. But it was just like they're like at a party, and somebody's talking over here, and somebody's talking over here, and it's like a lot of jibber jabber. It's 3 hours, man. You could have cut that down to like an hour and a half. You know, maybe like a 30-minute Alf episode. Just chop that shit up and get the explosion. And I went in going, dude, this is gonna be fucking awesome. It's gotten all these, it's like so much hype, and sometimes
you were ready.
That kind of ruins it sometimes too, right? And there's like way too much hype. Like there's so much expectation, and then you get in there and it's kind of a letdown. The way that you build it up in your mind is not the way it delivers.
Yeah. Well, did you watch The Irishman? Scorsese's Netflix thing?
Or
De Niro
and the little guy, Pesci. Yeah. I did. I had a hard time with the graphics, right? Like when they're young, when that kind of kills it. It was good. I would watch it again. Yeah,
same. Yeah. I watched it in half-hour chunks because a lot of the people that have really good taste were reporting that this is one of the best movies of the year. I'm like, well, I'm going to go into this and try it because like I'm a guy with good taste. And I got to say, I really liked it. I couldn't tell you really anything about it. And I watched it in half-hour chunks, and I'm never going to rewatch it again. But I don't know, sometimes there are things that are made that you are invited to meet the author more than halfway. Like they're not going to, like Batman Begins is Chris Nolan, him coming to meet you and saying like, listen, it's, Batman, the Joker, like it's all your buddies. And then suddenly you're like, yeah, I want to see the gadgets, and I want to see Alfred, and I want to see the Joker. Like, sign me the fuck up. And then you show up and you're like, this is kind of a Bond movie. What is going on? This is like a Jason Bourne movie. And he seduces you with something high concept or very populist, and then gives you something with nutritional value at the end. And I haven't seen Oppenheimer, but maybe this is, he's kind of earned his right to say like, you know what? You come meet me. I'm making something, Rick, absolutely delicious here. And if you're not ready for a tasting menu and high concept food, then that's up to you. But like you're gonna have to rewire your brain a little bit to get what I'm doing here. And The Irishman was that for me. I was like, I'm not sure this is for me, but I like, as a piece of art, as a piece of something, I want to give it the respect because it's clearly not a waste of time but
Right.
it was for me, not completely, but I'm taking off commercial art out of my head. I'm taking off populism out of my head, and maybe I'm just gonna have to do a little bit of work. Sometimes. I don't want to do it all the time. On a long day, I'm not putting on the Irishman.
Yeah. No. Well, that's right. That's perfect, man. That kind of wraps this whole thing up, because like if we kind of talked about get on stage, talk about who you are, and you're not going to be for everybody, and people can unfollow you, people can walk out. They don't have to appreciate everything that you do, but the people that are for you are going to show up, and it's kind of the same thing here. So Chris Nolan's like, hey, you come meet me. No, that's too much work for me. I won't. You might, but that again, it kind of like narrows it down. Now his next movie, I'll be there too, right? This just because one thing didn't fit my expectation doesn't mean that I'm completely out. Now if his next movie sucks, then I'm like, all right, whatever.
But whatever, you're in for life, you know it.
Oh, dude, I've watched Interstellar probably, I don't know, 40 times at this point. I don't know. If there's nothing going on, if I'm on a shitty flight, like they've got 10 movies and Interstellar is one of them, I'm probably just gonna put that on because I can turn off my head and I can just watch it. I will say, I did spend 12 hours flying, and I saw these people doing raw dogging. Are you familiar with this?
Yes, I am. It's absolutely.
I was like sitting in the aisle, and in the aisle was like this big guy, and he just turns on the map and he just sits there and he's just watching it. And I'm like looking at him. I'm like, this guy really going to do it? And then he like turns to his girlfriend. He's like, I need you to take some pictures of me. And he's just doing it for the gram, right? And this is the thing. This is the mentality only men have. You will never see a woman or a female identifying person be like, I'm a raw dog the map on a 8-hour flight. It's straight dudes. I'm sorry. This is another thing we got to correct. We can't. This is not how we need to go through life. But it's like, what's the point? Who cares? And then you have to like document it. Like, I did this.
Well, yeah. If a man raw dogs a flight in the woods and nobody hears it,
did he really raw dog it?
Did he really raw dog it?
Awesome, man. All right, dude. We'll wrap this up here. Jesse, this was a good time. I really like having it on here. I love what you're doing on Instagram. Definitely go follow Jesse. I don't know, man. Anything you want to say before we wrap up here?
This was so much fun. I really can't thank you enough for having me on. It was so fun talking about comedy, design, and guys, just put yourself out there. I want to see you. Oh, here's the last thing I'm actually going to say.
Yeah.
Is, when my accounts started getting even a little bit popular, I had a few people reach out to me and say, like, I really like this and I'm flattered by that. And they say, I'm going to start doing this myself. And I want to say, everyone, if you want to steal my format, please go and do it. I would love to see anybody else. If you want to, this is obviously where I record everything. If you look at my Instagram, it's all just right here in a tiny little detached studio I'm lucky enough to have. If you have a microphone and a stool and want to do stand-up monologue into a camera about design, steal the format. I invite you to. I want to see what you have to do. I don't want to be alone in doing this. I want to see more people do, if not ripping me off, like riff on it. Everyone's invited to steal my shit. I completely encourage it.
No, I love it. It's like 1980s stand-up comedy, right? Like Richard Pryor, like where they're sitting on a stool and they're just riffing to the audience.
Yeah, and that's the Gen X in me too, right? I just like watching Premium Blend on Comedy Central. Hey guys, like, share, and subscribe. Make sure to leave something in the comments.